Hello everyone, so today we had an over-the-air patch, and with that came several big changes to several cards. We had a slight nerf, surprisingly, to Hawk. We had a nerf to Lady Deathstrike, a buff to Leech, a buff to Klaw, which is the one that I am most interested in, and a buff to Ultron, which is kind of cool, but I don't know that it really brings him back into relevance. So with Klaw, it went from giving a +6 to another lane to a +8. And so this, in combination with a deck that naturally wants to run Onslaught a lot of the time, can be a sneaky way to position power and still wins away from your opponent. And so I wanted to slot him into a Living Tribunal build. That way you had the option. You have that psychological kind of decision or warfare with the opponent of, am I going to go Living Tribunal? Or are we just going to simply drop an Onslaught and double up on the power that's on the board and really compete heavily for 2 locations? And so it's really hard for them to tell which one you're going to go with. And in that uncertainty leaves a lot of room for misplays and miscalculations, leading to a lot of potential cube gains or losses if you do it incorrectly. And so what I really like about this build is we can hide the Klaw behind an Invisible Woman. It looks like a standard Living Tribunal build, and then maybe we just drop Iron Man into the lane that we used Klaw on. It doubles up on that +8, so we're already at +16 in that lane, and then maybe we later go in and Onslaught that Klaw to push a little bit more power into both the Klaw lane and the Iron Man lane. There's a lot of flexible ways to play this one, or you can just go with your standard Iron Man into Onslaught into Living Tribunal line, and this one does that phenomenally. And so right now we're not seeing a lot of negative impact from Leech, since he only affects on reveal abilities. That hits our Jubilee, our Iron Lad, or Mystique, and most of those we will have on the board by turn number 5 anyways. And so we're gonna go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. Thank you guys as always for being here. I hope you guys enjoy, because if so, they have a free trigger in the throne room. With the reduction, we could get Living Tribunal plus Ravonna out onto the board. Ravonna is going to make Iron Man go down to 3, and so then we have a little bit more flexibility. We could do Iron Lad plus Iron Man. We could do Jubilee plus Iron Man, a couple of different ways to play those cards. We could do Klaw plus Iron Man, which is going to be a lot of power potentially here as well. So go ahead and lock in the Living Tribunal in the left lane and see if they have... If they have Galactus, they definitely win the left lane, and then we have to hope from there. White Widow comes down. It does cap out Time Theater, so we won't be able to play anything there. Havoc comes down, so he's going to get a little bit of growth as well. You have to look out for what now? Cannonball? Cannonball being like their big potential line here. It'd be 16, but we'd be pushing 9. We'd be pushing this over here. Klaw would help pad this one a little bit. I kind of like this. It's very specific on the Klaw read, or on the Cannonball read, though. We're going to go for it. I think Professor X Klaw. Whoa, they move a lot of power into the throne room. That is very, very scary. I'm not so certain we'll see Cannonball now. Angela, there is the Cannonball. Beautiful. Living Tribunal pushes over into the Iron Man lane, which is going to increase our power. Never mind. He's not going to increase our power, I guess. Klaw is going to make sure we have 14 in mid, which helps us overcome that one. The Havoc in the right lane is not going to be able to scale enough. We grab the 4 cubes with the weird roundabout Klaw play, which helps us push a decent amount of power across the board. We will gladly take it. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Dara, and while brewing, I did run into Dara, and he absolutely roasted us for 4 cubes. So we'll see if we're able to get a little semblance of that back here today. So we have Ravonna that we're going to be able to drop. We have Magic to extend the game. He was running a Klaw list, a Klaw utilizing like Luke Cage, Man-Thing, Jean Grey, the whole package, what you would typically expect from that. But since I've already featured the ongoing deck, I didn't want to do it again. I wanted to try and find something a little bit cooler, or a little bit newer. So we have Magic. I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to Magic into Thunderbolt's Tower. If he's still running the same deck and has Jean Grey, if I was him, I would drop Jean Grey in Thunderbolt's Tower to force us to have to play there and then get that negative affliction if we're not running Luke Cage. But he hasn't played for the first 3 turns, which is really scary. We have Invisible Woman if we wanted to drop it, but I think we just do think we're just going to do Iron Man. Iron Man and then like a sneaky Claw plus Onslaught can put an absurd amount of power into this lane. And then we can drop Living Tribunal there after the fact. So Iron Man's going to come down. Azar, so it's more of a flood style. So I guess he kicked that ongoing deck out and picked up something new. So we could do Jubilee and fish for Mystique. But I kind of like the idea of doing Claw instead. Claw into Onslaught into Living Tribunal is a lot of power. That's going to put a ridiculous amount here or here, depending on if we get restricted in some way, shape, or form. But as long as they can't rip this location away, I think we're perfectly fine. Claw gives us that ability to, if we can't get the Living Tribunal down, we can fight for multiple lanes relatively easy. And then a Claw into a next turn Mystique can be just a ridiculous amount of power as well. Not as high roll as the Iron Man, of course, but good nonetheless. And so his Claw does come down. He's probably running Ultron to flood this, so I'm thinking like Blue Marvel and Onslaught, or Blue Marvel, or since it's extended, Onslaught and then Ultron, to really push power across the entirety of the board. But I like the idea of doing Living Tribunal here. We just go ahead and let him know that we do have it, and then our Onslaught is going to get slotted into mid, and it's really hard to compete with that much power if you don't have those counter tools. And what I've realized is not very many people are running those counter tools, and so it's a lot harder to compete against. So the Onslaught is going to duplicate the Iron Man, which duplicates the 8 from the Claw, the 9 and the 7, the 2 from the Magic, the Living Tribunal, and the Onslaught. And it's really hard to come over the top of that. And we do get one of the 4. We will come back later for the other 3, Dara. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have rank number 30 Reload. And the first location is Mojo World. So I think we're going to focus fire pretty heavily there early on, unless we can change it with the Magic. Because, one, if we can get some extra power there, beautiful. If we have more power than they do, then that makes a Living Tribunal really, really strong in that location. So they have Red Hulk, which is going to continue scaling. They have Korg, so I'm expecting a Hawk deck. We can go Cosmo into Claw into like an Iron Man. Cosmo into Claw into Iron Man into Onslaught. Could push a lot of power into the Rickety Bridge, a lot of power into Mojo World. I kind of like it. It does, of course, rely on Magic to be able to make that happen, and Magic would be played in the X Mansion. We want to keep Rickety Bridge because it's kind of tough to fight power there. Miss Marvel comes down for them, Cerebro for us. Not awful, it's not great though. And with Cosmo in the left lane, even our like Jubilee or Iron Lad out is not perfectly ideal. Leech comes down, which the only thing that impacts is our Mystique, which Mystique is great, but it's not mandatory by any means. And so for them to just have a 2, unless they have Blink, it's not the worst thing. So I think we're going to go Claw, and then we can go Rock plus Iron Man. It's not a huge amount of power in this left lane, which is the biggest concern right now. They do use Blink to switch out the Leech, I thought. Oh, they don't have anything in their deck that's higher than that. We know that we want to cap out this left lane. We know that we want to have the power here, so I'm going to do... If they play something relatively big here, and they don't cap out Mojo World, then we look silly. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Hope that they don't play for Rickety Bridge. And there we go. So we have only 18 in this left lane. They have Rock Slide come down. They have Nocturne come down. It is not going to be enough to overcome this middle lane. We win mid, or I guess left. We win left, we win mid, we win right. Not comfy by any means, but we will take it. Magic would have definitely helped us be able to play that a little bit smoother and dig for like an Onslaught, get a Living Tribunal out on the board, but we will gladly take the win where we can. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Gary. The first location is Lake Hellas. They do have a Nebula that plays over there, which is a little bit unfortunate. We can change that location with a Magic eventually, which I kind of like. We don't necessarily want to just fully commit to it, but we want to stop the scaling somewhat and then change it eventually. And so with the Nebula, with the armor, it could be the ongoing build. I did see a few like She-Not Leech style builds floating around, so we have to be careful of those. Onslaught is interesting, especially with Ravona, because we can do some pretty big plays. We can do magic into Klaw, which allows us to do Iron Man, Onslaught. It leaves that space open. We could then do Cosmo, Iron Man, Onslaught, Living Tribunal. We are going to extend this location. I don't really want to do any other play, because that would really force us into playing in the right location. They drop a Cosmo, a Lizard, and a Luke Cage, so it is the ongoing build, unfortunately. We do have Klaw, which helps us out a touch, but it's still very, very scary. Iron Man here might be playable. Their Cosmo here is definitely very scary. I think I'm going to go Iron Man into mid. That pushes a lot of power into this location. I'm not certain. The Mobius, we're not going for a discount on any of our cards, so that's okay. We do double up on the 8 power here from the Klaw. It pushes it to 16. We do have Living Tribunal now, which will help us a little bit. Kind of like the idea of doing like a Klaw here, an Invisible Woman here, just to stop Nebula from scaling just a touch. But I'm not certain. I'm not sold that it just completely outright wins either. But the Cosmo in mid might stop them from being able to... Ooh, Jean Grey is scary in the right lane. It will stop them from being able to do their Spectrum, because the Cosmo in the middle location. We might be able to win off of the Living Tribunal. This goes up to 16. I don't know. Let's do the math. I'm busting out the calculator. No, it goes to 14.3. That one just did not fall in our favor. The magic, the Cosmo countering the magic the turn we played it, was that turning point. And so had we played it somewhere else and not been so greedy with the Nebula, maybe, but we didn't necessarily see the Cosmo coming in that same location. We will take the 1 cube loss. We learn from them. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Kindle, Kindle, Kindle. The first location is Westview, so that'll turn into a new one on turn number 4. They have Red Hulk, so we know that they at least have an explosive, over-the-top last turn play, so we have to be mindful of that. We don't have anything for early game, unfortunately, but... And then Angela's going to be a pretty decent tool in their arsenal as well. Daily Bugle will give us a copy of one of their cards. Shang-Chi is not a terrible one. I don't know that we'll necessarily use it, but it's not a terrible one. Let's go with Magic, and then we'll see kind of where we're at. We do have the Sarah, so Sarah into Onslaught, into kind of a free last turn play is big. That gives us a lot of agency in how we navigate that last turn. So they did snap. I think we're okay with staying here. I almost want to snap back, but we'll see. We'll wait just a touch. We know that they have the big Red Hulk, and then we'll see what other cards they have. They're that high impact. Leech stops the on reveals, so the only thing that it hurts on our end is Mystique and Shang-Chi, which are somewhat detrimental, but not game ending. So if it was the old Leech, which is why I experimented with a list briefly, but it just feels like it impacts so much less. Even though a lot of strong decks are running on reveals, it doesn't have as much oomph as you would necessarily want from that Leech play. So with the Captain Marvel, we have to be kind of weary of them ripping away Limbo, but I'm all right risking it. We see it infrequently enough that we're really hoping that they don't. The Kitty Pryde coming down in mid. We have the Onslaught, which is beautiful to see. Their Red Hulk is tough, but I'm hoping that we are tougher. So the 13 is going to hit the Iron Man here. We have the Living Tribunal, which we can throw here. Or if we wanted to, we could go something like Klaw into Iron Man. We could even go like Cosmo. We could go Iron Lad if Living Tribunal or Onslaught or whatever was left in our deck as that last card. But I like trying this. I don't know that it gets us there. with the only having 6, with only having 13, it's not as big as I would like, but it is fairly big nonetheless. And so magic does pull over, and so it's not 13 anymore. It's a little bit less, unfortunately. The Kitty Pryde in the left lane, they don't go with their big, massive Hulk, so we might be able to outshadow that 20 power in the right lane, potentially. We'll see once the Living Tribunal comes down. If we're just over it, we... Wow. we win mid by 20, and then they win right by 5. We win left by 5. So we will gladly take the 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Lion. The first location is Titan, which makes our 6 cost cards a little bit cheaper, which is beautiful for this build. And then the middle location is Atlantis, so just a singular card there could be nice to see. Could give us a decent amount of extra power. I'm going to play Ravona. We could always reinforce it a little bit later with something like Klaw if we wanted to keep that +5 power from Atlantis. So they end up playing Colossus. Do people play Colossus? We lose our Onslaught. They lose their Destroyer? No, their Ultron. Interesting. Interesting build. The Ultron, I'm not sure where Colossus would fit into an Ultron build, honestly. I think it's okay. I think we're in a pretty good spot. We lost Onslaught. It's not the worst case scenario. That's our high roll, but definitely not our only roll. With having Titan, our 6 cost cards are 5. We have Ravona on the board. We're going to have Sarah, so that's going to make our Iron Man down to 3, Mystique down to 1, which is beautiful. Nocturne is not as beautiful, though. So they snapped into it. I think I'm okay doing Iron Man into Sarah on 5, into Living Tribunal, and something else potentially. I'm okay staying, though. They snapped because they can rip Limbo away whenever they want to. Very strange build, though. Limbo's now gone, so Living Tribunal is now back to 6, unfortunately. It's still a very interesting build. Mystique still goes down to 1. Is that enough, though? We can do Mystique into Cosmo, into Living Tribunal on 6. Weird line, but I think that's what we're going to go with. Sandman does allow us to only play 1 card, so I'm glad we didn't go the Sarah route, because I fully anticipate them using Nocturne to change Limbo. And so we'll see. This lane is going to be protected. If they do a leader, that's going to copy the Living Tribunal. We can also reinforce Atlantis with Klaw if we wanted to, but I like the idea of the Living Tribunal just a touch better. So they could go wide with, they were looking for Ultron. Maybe they end up going with like a Doctor Doom, maybe a leader. So they do move Nocturne. Limbo changes. They are competing for the right location, I assume. It can't be Ultron. They lost that. The Cosmo comes down. Also perfectly fine. Living Tribunal with the doubled up Iron Man plus Mystique is going to throw 19 across the board. There's a lot of ways to get that kind of good mid-range power. There's a few ways to make that happen. We will gladly take it. We'll grab the 8 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. Next up, we have Heimdall Enjoyer. Let's see if they're running a movement style deck. Castle Zemo is interesting. We can always do something like Jubilee. That doesn't lose us too much in terms of value by it switching to their side of the board. We could also try to do Magic to rip it away, which I think is a little bit more consistent. I'd honestly rather keep that 1 point on our side if we can help it. So they snapped. They could be running an Electro Ramp deck and see Castle Zemo and think wonderful things. We don't necessarily have to play off curve. We have a lot of high-end stuff, and so I don't know that that would necessarily just mean the end. However, multiple man into Phoenix Force
Live from the Daily Bugle.
could be could be that end potentially. Let's go ahead and go Magic to extend the game. On 5, we do have Sarah. We can do Invisible Woman, and then we'll see. We need to get something in. We need to get an incredibly big high roll to make this happen. And so Magic, because we're going to have to come over the top of a lot of power with the multiple man spreading across the board at the 8 power. You can't really do anything other than just have more power than what it can put out. And so we'll see if we're able to do that. Limbo is a good first step. We have Iron Lad, which might be helpful. We have Jubilee, which might also be helpful. I'm going to go ahead and use Jubilee. That thins our deck, gives us better chance to draw into those resources we need. I'm hoping that Heimdall Enjoyer does not run a deck that typically has a way to change a location, like Nocturne or something similar. Ravona is not the best hit from Jubilee, but it's definitely not the worst. It allows us to do some really cheap like Iron Man into Mystique shenanigans. We don't have any of our bigger things yet. And so a Sarah here could be pretty big. And honestly, 8, 16, 32. We have to beat 32 in each lane. Like a Klaw into an Iron Man plus Mystique might be enough to do it. I don't know. We're going to go Sarah here. They do move the multiple man. They're going to move it every turn. It's going to have so much power. By the end of the game, they have this card from us. The Ghost Spider moves the multiple man again. A Heimdall just pushes this power all over the board. They get a very good mid-range amount of power. Human Torch comes down. Mystique comes down. Did they drop Cable at some point? No, Daily Bugle. They got a copy of our Mystique. Ours is sitting right here. And so we do have the Living Tribunal now. And Iron Lad would either hit Claw or Onslaught. And so we can do something like this. Iron Lad hitting Onslaught would be big. Or Iron Lad hitting Claw over here would be big. It hitting Onslaught would be big as well. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Iron Lad, the Iron Man, and then we'll see where we're at. We have the 1 cost Mystique from both the Ravona and the Sarah. So we'll see if they have a way to change that location. They have Carnage, which is going to destroy Mystique, Human Torch. They move their multiple man again. So it's going to be a really big amount of power across the board, which is really tough to compete against. But with our Iron Man in mid, it's really hard for them to come over the top of that. We could always drop a second Iron Man in the left lane, so it is Onslaught. So doing a Mystique over here is really, really big. Klaw is going to be the one that's at the bottom of our deck, unfortunately. But Iron Man's the last card we dropped. We do Mystique to double up on this one. And then the Living Tribunal. We can do more than that, right? Wow. That's not bad. We're going to go ahead and do this Flood. All of these cards are super cheap. We have the Mystique, the Living Tribunal, the Cosmo, the Invisible Woman that we can play all of. And so we're going to go ahead and lock that in. The Mystique in the left lane is going to be an onslaughted Iron Man, and so that's going to be a little bit better to play over there than anywhere else. And then the Living Tribunal will help us spread that power, and I think that might be okay, but we'll see. So they move their multiple men over to the left. The Iron Lad comes down, and I didn't see what it hit. That's so deadly. It hit Eliath, which I was not expecting in a Phoenix Force movement deck for some reason. Ew. Mystique still copies the Iron Man, so thankfully that helps us win that left lane pretty handily. We win it by 18. As long as we don't lose this right lane by more than 18, it should be okay. And I think between all of the cards, we end up losing it by 12. We are going to grab the 4 cubes here. What a tough one. They had a really good roll, but we just came over the top of it by just a touch. We will gladly take the 4. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have the Store Manager. From Camp Lehi, we get Hope Summers, which is not an awful card to have. Not one I would want to build into this deck, but it's a nice one. Gives us a little bit of extra energy on curve sometimes. We could do... We can do Hope Summers into Jubilee. Might as well. We do have Cosmo to stop any kind of on reveals that they might have. They have Human Torch plus Carnage. We are looking at a Phoenix Force deck, which is really scary to see. Maybe we can stop their... Oh, they have initiative here, right? In that case, unless they have a Taskmaster, we should be able to come over the top of it. I'm going to throw Jubilee into Camp Lehi. Maybe it pulls into Magic. They go Iron Lad, which... So they did not have the Phoenix Force. Very interesting. I was fully expecting a Phoenix Force on that turn. We get Sarah, which does help our card cost reduction dramatically. We are okay with seeing Sarah. We do get the extra energy. So I'm going to go ahead and we will extend the game with Magic. I'm going to go Iron Man. We can always go Klaw in this lane and then maybe copy it with Mystique. We can copy the Iron Man with Mystique. We have Onslaught to lean down into as well. But with Magic, we'll have that extra turn to utilize. So Iron Man comes down in mid. What an interesting build. Fully gold, beautiful splits, beautiful particle effects. We'll see if we're able to hold it down. That Iron Man is very scary in this middle location. So we do have Living Tribunal coming in at 5 cost. We could Invisible Woman into Onslaught, into Mystique plus Living Tribunal.
Behold my mighty hand.
Onslaught is wild there. Oh my goodness, what a huge play. And so a double Onslaught doesn't give us much to work with. And I don't know how it functions, actually. I don't know if that's more power than the Living Tribunal in that lane or not. Honestly, I have no idea. It used to be multiplicative. Now I think it's additive. I don't know. I like the idea of Onslaught into Mystique, but there is a very hard limit on how high that can go. So Living Tribunal in the left lane. We'll have Onslaught. Phoenix Force comes down. Let's see what that looks like. They have a pretty big Phoenix Force, or Human Torch from the Phoenix Force. The Ghost Spider's going to pull him. That is a lot of power in the right lane. Let's see if we can come over the top of whatever it is. And then the last one is Multiple Man, so it's still a lot of power over there. So the Onslaught and then the Mystique to copy the Onslaught makes it pretty large. Yeah, okay. Okay, I think that was definitely the play to go with. We will gladly take the wild 284 power in each lane.